Elden Ring is more than just a masterpiece of game design. It's a triumph of storytelling, as we talked about last time. We journeyed deep into the lore of Elden Ring, uncovering a tale shaped by gods, betrayal, and tragedy. We began with the Shattered Age, exploring Queen Marika's rule, her complex relationship with her demigod children, and the devastating Night of the Black Knives, a moment that forever fractured the world. We saw how Marika removed the Rune of Death, inadvertently birthing the undead and plunging the lands between into chaos. We examined the fierce retaliation of the Golden Order, their brutal suppression of rebellions, and the rise of powerful Empyreans destined for godhood. We met the demigods Renala and her Academy of Raya Lucaria, General Radon and the scarlet-rotted lands of Caelid, Rykard's heresy beneath Mount Gelmir, Morgoth's steadfast defense of Leyndell, and Mog's sinister dynasty hidden underground. We unraveled the heartbreaking saga of twins Melina and Miquella, their curses, their struggles, and the legacy of rot left behind. We ended by reflecting on the philosophical underpinnings of Elden Ring, a story not of heroes and villains, but of choices, consequences, and the heavy burden of divine ambition. Today we pick up from the heart of the lands between, stepping forward into the main quest and venturing into its long-awaited DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. Here we'll discover the truth behind Marika's hidden past, the mysterious Shadowlands, Miquella's ambitious pilgrimage, and a realm where darkness itself has taken root, reshaping all we thought we knew. If you're new to this series, I highly recommend watching part 1 first. So if you're ready, let's step forward into the realm where the final echoes of gods still linger, and the fate of the lands between waits to be rewritten. Thankfully, we're not alone on our journey through the lands between. Along the way, a number of NPCs lend us their aid, but none are more important than Melina. We first meet Melina after dying to the grafted Scion at the start of the game. She reappears when we rest at our first site of grace, introducing herself with an offer and accord. What she means is a deal. She wants us to take her to the foot of the Erdtree, the place of her birth. In return, she offers to act as our finger maiden. As Var bluntly tells us earlier, we're maidenless. And while Melina may not be an official maiden, she's willing to take on that role. Through her, we're able to convert the runes we gather into strength, allowing us to level up. She also gifts us her loyal steed, Torrent, giving us the mobility we need to survive the open world. One of the first things Melina does is grant us access to the Roundtable Hold, a hub for tarnished warriors seeking to become Elden Lord. It's here we meet Gideon Ofnir, our primary source of knowledge about the demigods and their locations. But the Roundtable isn't exactly brimming with hope. Most of its members are either too frightened to continue, have given up entirely, or are pursuing their own goals. Some, like Dalos or Rogier, are kind, but clearly not contenders for the throne. Others, like Dee, are locked in more personal crusades. Even Gideon himself, though resourceful, is weighed down by the burden of knowledge. The atmosphere is somber, almost hopeless. And when you learn about the early days of the Roundtable, it gets worse. Warriors like Vargram, Alberic, and errant sorcerer Wilhelm once sought to become Elden Lord too. They failed, each for different reasons, but the message is clear: this path is paved with broken dreams. It makes you wonder, if none of them made it, what chance do we really have? But that's where Melina becomes so important. She stands by us, even when others falter. She reminds us that the guidance of grace, those golden trails we see leading from sites of grace, is what brought us back to the lands between in the first place. She tells us that we, the tarnished, were once banished, stripped of grace and cast out to the lands beyond. But now that grace has returned to us, so too has our purpose. The golden lines guide us to the Shardbearers, the demigods we must defeat to reforge the Elden Ring. Melina also opens up about herself. She's on a journey too, seeking her purpose, something entrusted to her long ago by her mother. She believes the answer lies at the base of the Erdtree, but there's something tragic about her. She only appears at certain resting points, hinting that she doesn't have a physical body. Her hands are burned, possibly explaining why she's incorporeal and why she's bound to a destiny she doesn't fully understand. As we travel, Melina reveals more of the world's secrets. When visiting certain churches of Marika, she can replay echoes of the past, one of which is particularly striking.
Very well. In Marika's own words, my lord, and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die. Well, perhaps that might serve you in lieu of a maiden's guidance.
This message implies that Queen Marika herself orchestrated the banishment of the Tarnished, knowing full well they would eventually return. The question is why? Many believe Marika intended to break the Golden Order from within. She needed the Tarnished to shatter the system she herself had helped build. Supporting this theory is an unexpected NPC at the Roundtable Hugh, a kind old misbegotten blacksmith. It seems odd that a creature tied to the Crucible of Life, a power predating the Golden Order, would be placed here. At one point, we overhear Hugh praying to Marika.
Oh, your divinity, have mercy and grant me forgiveness. The road is yet long, a god is not easily felled. But one day without fail you will have your wish. So please grant me forgiveness, Queen Marika.
This foreshadows the end of the game, where we fight Radagon, Marika's male half, and then face something even greater. It's suggested that Marika wants us to kill her and all the divine entities entangled with her. Why? We still don't have a clear answer. But what is clear is this Marika may be guiding us silently and patiently, especially as the story enters its second half, and with Melina at our side, even if only in spirit. We're not walking this path alone. When we finally reach the foot of the Erdtree, we're met not with glory, but a barrier's a massive wall of impenetrable thorns. We can't pass. The reason becomes clear almost immediately. Radagon's rune, a distinct cross, stitch pattern seen on both the thorns and his own scar seal, is engraved on the obstruction. This is his seal, his rejection. Radagon is bearing us from entering the Erdtree, and in doing so, he's actively opposing Marika's will. But even now, the guidance of grace continues to lead us toward a new destination, the Forge of the Giants. There, we'll find the only flame strong enough to burn the Erdtree's thorns, and so I believe Marika is still guiding us, even from within. The price of entry, Melina's sacrifice, but the most important part of this moment isn't about Marika. It's about Melina. To burn the thorns, Melina must become the kindling.
I have long observed the lands between. This world is in dire need of repair and death. Indiscriminate. Are you prepared to commit a cardinal sin? O Erdtree, you shall burn. Burn for the sake of the new Lord. Thank you for guiding me here. The one who walks alongside flame shall one day meet the road of destined death. Goodbye.
She offers herself willingly. It's the final step in the accord we made with her, and it's devastating, but there is another path. At the mountaintop, a disturbing figure named Shabriri appears, aligned with the Frenzied Flame. He offers you a choice. You, the Tarnished, can become the Kindling instead, saving Melina in the process. It sounds noble, it sounds merciful, but it's a trap. The Frenzied Flame is a chaotic outer god. Its goal is madness, not mercy. Shabriri plays on our compassion, our love for Melina, but he's only furthering his own agenda. And we wouldn't be the first to fall for it. A Bernal, a once hopeful Tarnished, struggled with this very decision. He couldn't bring himself to sacrifice his maiden until she chose it herself. Grief-stricken, Bernal abandoned the Golden Order and became a recusant, serving Rykard instead. Then there's Vike, the famed knight on the cover art of Elden Ring. At one point, he was the closest Tarnished to ever become Elden Lord. But without warning, Vike descended into Laendel's depths and sought out the Frenzied Flame. Something went wrong, possibly because he kept his armor on. You must be completely bare to inherit the flame. Later, we encounter Vike as an invader at the Church of Inhibition, driven mad. At the back of that church sits a woman, dead in a chair, presumed to be Vike's maiden. Theories differ. Did Shabriri kill her, pushing Vike toward madness, or did Vike himself, in a moment of frenzied despair, take her life? The truth doesn't matter. The result is the same. Shabriri cannot be trusted. He weaponizes our guilt. Even Melina, the very person you're trying to save, begs you not to take the Frenzied Flame.
If you intend to claim the Frenzied Flame, I ask that you cease. It is not to be meddled with. It is chaos, devouring life and thought unending. However ruined this world has become, however mired in torment and despair, life endures. Births continue. There is beauty in that, is there not? If you would become Lord, do not deny this notion. Please, leave the Frenzied Flame alone. The Frenzied Flame is not to be meddled with. It is chaos, devouring life and thought unending. So please, leave the Frenzied Flame alone.
For a long time, I sided with Shabriri. I thought that accepting the Frenzied Flame wasn't about destroying the world, but about saving Melina, like the Maiden in Black or the Firekeeper before her. She's loyal, kind, and unwavering in her support. She didn't deserve to die, right? But I've changed my mind. Melina tells us plainly that this is her choice, that her role in burning the thorns wasn't forced upon her. Yes, the purpose was given by her mother, but Melina chose to carry it out for herself. She wants to do this, and who are we to take that away from her? Yes, we want her to live. Yes, we love her, but not at the cost of her purpose. Wanting to preserve her life out of fear or attachment, that's selfish. She believed in us from the beginning. It didn't take her long to realize that we would become Elden Lord. And this is how she honors the journey we took together. Her final act isn't just sacrifice, it's closure. She's a soul without a body, tethered to grace, wandering. By becoming the Kindling, she's finally allowed to move on, to be whole. And so we say goodbye. Melina has sacrificed herself, and her flames have carried us to the next stage of our journey, the crumbling Farum Azula. We mentioned this place earlier, but now we experience it firsthand. Farum Azula is a crumbling, floating mausoleum suspended outside of time. Built during the Age of the Dragons, it's the resting place of Dragon Lord Placidusax, once the first Elden Lord before Marika's reign. But our true purpose here isn't the dragons, it's the beast clergyman. Halfway through the fight, he reveals his true identity, Maliketh, the shadow of Marika, and his presence here is deeply tied to another character, Gurranq, the beast clergyman who resides in Caelid and asks us to bring him Deathroot. That's because Maliketh and Gurranq are the same being. If you give Gurink all 9 death roots before coming to Farum Azula, Maliketh even recognizes you, calling you Tarnished the moment the fight begins. That moment of recognition proves that Farum Azula exists outside of time and space, a fact further supported by the ancient dragon smithing stones you find here. Their description says they lightly twist time, a subtle clue that this place is unbound by conventional rules of reality. How is that possible? No one truly knows, but the implications are immense. The rune of death, Maliketh's guilt, and the return of true death. Maliketh's hunger for Deathroot is more than instinct, it's guilt. Long ago, Maliketh was tasked with guarding the rune of death. After defeating the Gloam-Eyed Queen, Marika entrusted him with this sacred power. He sealed it within his black blade, keeping death itself from the world. But that seal didn't last. When Ranni orchestrated the Night of the Black Knives, a fragment of the rune was stolen. Godwyn the Golden was the first victim, and the deathblight that followed began to seep into the Erdtree's roots, manifesting as Deathroot. Maliketh failed in his duty, and now, out of shame and obligation, he tries to consume the rot he allowed to fester. When we defeat Maliketh, the rune of death is released once again. Real death returns to the lands between. This act also ignites the flame of the forge, burning the Erdtree at last and destroying the thorns that once blocked our path. But as always in Elden Ring, there's no clean victory, no rest, because 2 more obstacles now stand between us and the throne. First up, Gideon, the all-knowing. This confrontation was inevitable. We've been sharing knowledge, hunting demigods, and chasing the same goal. But now that the end is near, Gideon has turned against us, not to take the crown himself, but to stop us from claiming it. His reason: he believes Queen Marika doesn't want an Elden Lord. Not really.
I knew you'd come to stand before the Elden Ring, to become Elden Lord. What a sad state of affairs. I commend your spirit, but alas, none shall take the throne. Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle. Unto eternity.
My fellow, you fought well until now. I know in my bones, a Tarnished cannot become a lord. Not even you. A man cannot kill a god.
According to Gideon, Marika desires a cycle of endless conflict, where Tarnished rise and fall in an eternal struggle. Why does he believe this? Well, Gideon has been in communication with the 2 fingers, and from them, and perhaps from visions of Marika herself, he learned truths so horrifying that he claims he shuddered in fear at. And yet, that's exactly what this journey is leading us toward. Gideon's reaction suggests either one, he truly believes Marika's will must be upheld, even if it leads to madness, or he's been broken by the knowledge he uncovered and no longer knows what to believe. Either way, his opposition is absolute, and it cost him his life. But beyond Gideon stands the true final test, the one who once held the title Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. His presence here is poetic. We watch him mourn the body of Morgott, his son. Even though Morgott was an omen, Godfrey loved him. That moment of quiet grief tells us more about Godfrey than any lore entry ever could. He cared, truly. There's even a spirit of Godfrey in Lindell, who fights us before Morgott's throne, likely summoned as a protective force. Or maybe just as a memory of the only parent Morgott ever had who gave a damn about him. Now, with Morgott gone, Godfrey rises again. Not out of hatred, but out of ritual. The first Elden Lord returns to face the next. And if we want to claim the title, we must prove ourselves worthy in battle. However, even in death, Morgott's ashes are used as part of the guidance of grace, suggesting that despite being born an omen, reviled and cast aside, he may have been worthy of the Erdtree's embrace after all. But this divine guidance no longer points toward Morgott, it now points to us. The torch has been passed. Godfrey's task is complete, and ours has truly begun. We stand at a crossroads, not just in the story, but in purpose. This is why the framing of this final battle is so powerful. There are no ideologies clashing here, no grand philosophical disputes. Just a raw, brutal test of strength. A battle for the title of Elden Lord. Either the returning champion takes the crown once more, or a new challenger rises from the ashes of a shattered world. If you manage to drive Godfrey to the brink, he lifts his loyal beast companion Serosh and kills it without hesitation. In doing so, he sheds his refined identity and returns to the primal figure he once was, Hoara Loth. This transformation echoes what we discussed earlier. Godfrey was once a blood-soaked warrior, not a noble king. To become Lord, he had to restrain that primal rage. He changed his name to Godfrey. He had Serosh, a beast of great power, act as the vessel that contained his fury. But now, with Serosh slain, there is nothing left to hold him back. Godfrey is no more. Hoara Loth has returned in full, roaring and relentless. This act raises questions about Serosh himself. He's a unique creature, unlike anything else we encounter, and he appears with almost no explanation. But there are clues. The Beastclaw Greythemmer, gifted by Gurrenku, mentions that its fur and nails are shaped in honor of Serosh. Gurrenk's beast sanctum bears a striking resemblance to the architecture of Farum Azula, and we already know that Gurrenk's true identity is Maliketh, the shadow of Marika who resides within that floating temple. This suggests that Serosh, and perhaps all Empyrean shadows like Maliketh and Blade, originated in Farum Azula. Shadows are chosen by the two fingers to serve Empyreans, but they must come from somewhere. It's possible that Farum Azula is that place, a cradle of ancient beings bound to divine service. While this remains speculative, there's more that confirms Serosh is not merely a stand in or symbolic beast. The Golden Beast crest shield describes Serosh as a counselor who guided the Golden Lineage. That lineage spans from Godfrey and Marika all the way down to Godric. Serosh had will. He had wisdom. He wasn't just a cage for Godfrey's wrath. He was a voice in his ear, a being with his own purpose. His origins remain unknown, but his legacy is undeniable. With Godfrey dead, nothing stands in our way except... I know it's cruel to stop here, just as the Erdtree stands before us, open at last. But before we enter, there's still one thread we haven't pulled. Miquella, it might seem futile to return to the limp, rotting form of a demigod trapped in a cocoon, but not everyone agrees. Miquella may seem silent, forgotten, but as you'll discover, people have come to the lands between to answer his call. He may be dormant, but he is not gone. And so, before we ascend the throne, we must follow where that call leads and uncover where Miquella, the kindest, most mysterious of the demigods, has disappeared to. This marks the end of the main quest, but now we venture into the story of the shadow of the Erdtree. The Shadowlands Unveiled. The DLC begins in a place already drenched in blood, Mohg's boss arena. After defeating him, interacting with Miquella's hand transports us to a realm hidden from the rest of the world, the Shadowlands. It's a land cloaked in darkness, tucked away from the gaze of the Erdtree and the gods who once shaped the lands between. Though unfamiliar and eerie, there's a strange sense of recognition here. Much of what we encountered in the base game reappears, but distorted, twisted into new forms. Due to the DLC's more compact size, there aren't as many dungeons, but each one is designed with purpose and theme, rather than sheer quantity. Back in the lands between, walking mausoleums were created to honor long forgotten demigods, monuments of royalty, reserved only for those deemed worthy. Though Marika herself may have been indifferent to her children, someone still mourned them. The mausoleums were proof of that. In contrast, the mausoleums of the Shadowlands tell a very different story. According to the Helm of Solitude, these tombs are not for the remembered, but for the nameless, those who lost their names and their hearts. And true to that, every boss within these mausoleums is unnamed. We face beings like the Blackgall Knight, the Dancer of Rana, and R'hllana the Red Bear, not names, but titles. They are not honored royalty, but forgotten warriors preserved without identity. The Evergalls are another familiar structure, but their function has changed. In the lands between, each Evergall imprisoned a single unique figure, spread across the world with no clear pattern. In the Shadowlands, Evergalls now hold hundreds. These aren't just prisons, they're factories, melting their inmates down into fuel for warrior jars. In the lands between, warrior jars are animated vessels of reverence. They absorb fallen warriors' bodies and carry their spirits to continue the fight. It's grim, but strangely respectful, a form of chosen rebirth. But here in the Shadowlands, the process is cruel. These jars are not filled with the willing dead. Instead, the living are tortured and crammed into jars, reborn by force, stripped of will. Even death itself feels different here. In the lands between, burial under the Erdtree ensured one's return to the cycle, a sacred tradition. But in the Shadowlands, there is no sanctified return. The entire landscape is a grave. From the Cerulean coast to the foot of the Suppression pillar, every field is littered with speared graves, towering coffins, and weathered tombs. The catacombs have changed too. The familiar glowing roots of the Erdtree are gone, replaced by the tainted veins of Godwyn, the Prince of Death, just like in Stormvale or the Deeproot Depths. Godwyn's twisted face emerges from the stone walls, and now Death Knights, his ancient guardians, stand watch over every tomb. Even the Deathbirds have evolved, once seen at grave sites as sacred keepers who burned corpses in ghost flame. They've been replaced by stone, crafted beings called gravebirds. These new creatures were clearly modeled after the Deathbirds, but they guard spirit graves instead of real ones. It's unclear who made them, but the implication is that some force in the Shadowlands tried to preserve or mimic the sacred flame in their own cold, artificial way. And then there's the Dragon Communion. In the base game, the altars were mysterious, used by Albinorgs to consume dragon hearts and gain their power. The DLC finally reveals the origin of this practice, a war between the ancient dragons Placidusax and another, once forgotten dragon named Baal. This conflict explains long-standing mysteries, like the wounds on Placidusax's body, which left players puzzled for years. We now know who did it. Baal, his heads, grotesquely fused onto his own form, are trophies of that ancient violence. This feud also explains the spread of Dragon Communion sites. All dragons drop hearts when defeated, except for Fortisax and Lich Dragon Landseeks, both of whom are ancient dragons. Their exception seems deliberate. Placidusax's camp wanted mortals to hunt dragons and consume their power, which would make sense if his rival Baal had become too powerful. In this war, consuming hearts wasn't just reverence, it was rebellion. The new dragon priest, named Fluorosax, was placed here to guide hunters to Baal. And when the war was over, it's possible that Placidusax took another step, one that led to the rise of the ancient dragon cult. After his battle, Landseeks assumed a human form, one that resembles Fluorosax, and became a teacher of lightning sorceries. It's not impossible that this transformation, too, was part of Placidusax's plan. Perhaps even in defeat, he planted the seeds to destroy Baal's legacy. That's where Eigen enters. He's Elden Ring's version of Captain Ahab, the obsessed hunter from Moby Dick, who devoted his life to slaying a monstrous whale. For Eigen, Baal is that monster. During a past encounter, Baal devastated him, and now, driven by vengeance, Eigen swears to finish what he started. This part of the DLC reframes dragons not as divine remnants, but as survivors of civil war, betrayal, and desperate ideology. It's not just fire and wings, it's history, fractured and bleeding into the present. Despite losing his legs and being consumed by fear, Eigen refuses to die. His rage keeps him going, and with our help, he's able to rise again and finish what he started. The battle against Baal the Dread is one of the most visually stunning and emotionally loaded encounters in the game. From the treacherous climb up the jagged peak to the epic duel itself, it's a highlight of the DLC. Strangely enough, this is one of those rare fights where not bringing Eigen actually makes it feel less impactful. When the battle ends and Baal falls, Eigen delivers his final line, Bail the dread, you shall haunt me no longer. Moments like this reinforce the idea that this land, the Shadow Realm, is not just an extension of the lands between. It's something else entirely. It's a realm with its own beliefs, its own customs, its own history, separated from the world we thought we understood. Marika's hidden past. So where exactly are the Shadowlands? The Suppression Pillar offers a crucial clue. According to it, this place lies at the very center of the lands between. Its absence from the world map isn't because it's far away, but because it's been veiled, hidden from sight. This concept isn't new. Queen Marika's bedchamber was similarly shrouded by a magical veil. Many items and environmental clues suggest that Marika deliberately cast this veil herself, sealing the Shadowlands away from the world. This land wasn't always separate. It was once part of the lands between, but now overshadowed. Literally and metaphorically, it has become a place ruled by the Shadow Tree, a dark reflection of the Erdtree. The name Shadow of the Erdtree isn't metaphorical, it's literal. In the same way that light casts a shadow, the presence of the Erdtree implies an opposite, a land consumed not by golden radiance, but by the absence of it. The Shadow Tree represents this contrast. Where the Erdtree offers order and light, the Shadow Tree is chaos and dark growth. The Shadow Tree avatar, like its counterpart in the lands between, is a guardian born of its tree's essence. But its remembrance reveals that it is shaped by twisted, formless thoughts, dark notions that bend its stalk and render it brittle. This place is wild, lawless, and spiritually decaying. It is what the lands between might become without the Erdtree's influence. This also explains the uncanny familiarity of the Shadowlands. There are walking mausoleums, warrior jars, and grave birds, but each is changed. Perverted reflections of what we once knew. These elements show that this land once shared the same culture, but now that culture has decayed, twisted by time and isolation. The more haunting question, then, is why Marika hid it. A major clue lies behind the Shadow Keep, in a place called the Shaman Village. It's one of the most powerful and eerie locations in the entire game, not because of what's there, but because of what isn't. There are no enemies, no battles, just silence and two key items, Minor Erdtree and Golden Braid. Both are directly tied to Marika, and together they suggest something critical. This was her home. Its abandonment is tragic. The name Shaman gives us a clue. Shamans are mentioned elsewhere, particularly in the southern Albinoric village, where ghosts and item descriptions speak of their torture, of their bodies being melded into others. We've seen this already in the Evergalls, where people are forcibly fused into warrior jars. These are Marika's people, victims of cruelty, forgotten and consumed. It adds a new dimension to Marika's character. The same woman who oversaw the creation of the Erdtree and the removal of destined death was once part of this tortured lineage. And yet, she continued the culture of warrior jars in the lands between. There are only two explanations. One, Marika was unable to erase a ritual that had become too deeply rooted in society. Or two, she chose to preserve it, but changed its meaning, turning it into a ritual of respect, something her people had never been given. Whether out of powerlessness or repentance, this hidden history humanizes Marika. In the base game, she's painted as a divine skimmer, manipulative and cold. But the DLC offers something more, a woman burdened by grief, betrayal, and decisions too ancient to undo. Hornsent and the Crucible, and the source of that grief, the Hornsent. These figures reside in the Tower of Bellard, easily recognized by the massive horns growing from their bodies. Many item descriptions associate them with worship of the Crucible, a primordial force that existed before the Erdtree's order. Their society mirrors the ancient world, a time when feathers, wings, and horns were divine symbols, long before the Golden Order replaced them with doctrine and grace. At the top of the tower, near Ener Ilim, we find evidence that this is a sacred place. The Horned Warriors, elite fighters of the tower, are joined by divine beast warriors, whose armor marks them as chosen few. This implies that Ener Ilim is more than a fortress. It's a holy pilgrimage site for the faithful. The tower itself spirals upward, mimicking the shape of their belief system. The spiral is not just a symbol. According to the Serosh spell, it is a manifestation of the Crucible, forming a column that stretches toward the divine. At the tower's peak lies the Gate of Divinity, the place where Marika ascended to godhood. But the item description of that gate is curious. It says gods, not God, plural. So, who are these gods? It may not be singular deities like Marika or Radagon, but rather the Crucible itself, a chaotic, primal divine force that the Hornsent see as sacred. Their gods may not be people, but concepts. The divine beast, the spiral, the Crucible. One of the DLC's major bosses, the divine beast dancing lion, seems to embody these beliefs. Its design even resembles the lion dance traditions seen in East Asian cultures, reinforcing the idea that this society reveres movement, transformation, and primal divinity, not static order. Everything in the Shadowlands echoes that contrast between old and new, light and dark, memory and loss. And somewhere deep within it all is Marika, her story unraveling in ways we never expected. According to one of the item descriptions, divine beasts are said to be messengers of the heavens. The divine lions we encounter, then, appear to have been created in homage to a great divine beast, the central figure of worship among the Hornsent. This reverence isn't just symbolic, it informs every part of their culture, from architecture to ritual, and in some ways, it might even provide answers to lingering mysteries from the base game. Within Ilum, we find a disturbing number of bodies, embedded in the walls, splayed across the ground, twisted into the roots of trees, and draped over the Gate of Divinity itself. Some of this could be attributed to Marika, particularly the gate, which seems to have played a direct role in her ascension. But the other corpses, those built into the tower, look like they were always meant to be there. Their placement echoes the corpses seen scattered across the eternal cities, which suggests something familiar, that the Nox may have borrowed or inherited their rituals from the Hornsent before the lands were divided. The purpose behind the Nox's actions in the base game was to create a Lord of Night, a being to challenge the gods. It's not far-fetched to think they saw the Hornsent's god, making methods as something worth imitating, particularly their use of ritual sacrifice and spiraling divine architecture. After all, the Gate of Divinity was made to birth gods, and the Nox were desperately searching for one. This connection grows deeper when we consider talismans from the base game. The first and Bloody One versions are linked to ancestral followers, but the +2 versions, found near Hornsent territory, have rewritten item descriptions that connect them directly to the Hornsent. This suggests that the ancestral followers, like the Nox, may have encountered the Hornsent's culture long ago and attempted to carry those traditions back into the lands between. It's another example of how deeply the Hornsent's legacy has been woven into the world's fabric, subtle, entangled, and enduring. This influence even reaches into the Abyssal Woods, one of the most haunting locations in the DLC. Like the lands between, the Shadowlands were also partially touched by the Frenzied Flame, and the Abyssal Woods bear its scars. Standing at its gate is Jory, Elder Inquisitor, a member of a religious order whose task is to eliminate heretical ideas and threats to divine order. The Inquisitors of the Tower have been sent here to root out the madness, for deep within these woods lies the Manor of Midra, a corrupted leader and one, time noble, who has succumbed to the frenzy. The woods themselves are tainted. Aging untouchables, horrifying new enemies, wander the forest trails, and even the wildlife has been driven insane. It is a place teetering on the brink of divine collapse. The Inquisitors knew this. Some of them stand watch at the forest's edge to stop the spread. Others have infiltrated Midra's manor, desperately searching for any knowledge or tools that could contain the infection. When we arrive, Midra is still alive, barely, but a ribcage, shaped sword has been forcibly driven through his skull, a last-ditch attempt to keep the frenzy from erupting. It doesn't work. He tears the sword out himself, fully embracing the Frenzied Flame, and becomes its new lord. All of this reinforces what's already been made clear. The Hornsent had a deeply ritualistic and religious culture, but their pursuit of divinity led them down horrific paths. Chief among them was the kidnapping and forced fusion of people into jars, not as honorable warrior jars of the lands between, but as containers for some new godborn rite. Their reason? The Gate of Divinity. This tower is the same one featured in the DLC story trailer, where we saw Marika's ascension. The trailer spoke of seduction and betrayal, implying that Marika was once allied with the Hornsent, only to betray them later. The contradiction here lies in timing. If the Hornsent enslaved and experimented on her people, how could Marika have ever allied with them? The answer might lie near the Shaman village, where a set of finger ruins can be found. If Marika was an Empyrean, she would have had her own 2 fingers, and these ruins could have been their domain. These fingers might have guided her, teaching her how to avenge her people and seize godhood using the very rituals the Hornsent once used against her. That would explain the massacre we see in the trailer. The Gate of Divinity soaked in blood, surrounded by the corpses of the Hornsent. Marika used their system against them, becoming a god by turning their ritual into retribution. This act birthed the Golden Order, with the Erdtree as its divine symbol. But unlike most incantations whose origins are tied to covenants or academies, the minor Erdtree spell comes directly from Marika herself. For her, the Erdtree wasn't just a tree, it was a monument to her people, their culture, and their erasure. This makes her ascension not just divine, but deeply personal. The pain of her people, the genocide of the shamans, and the corruption of their traditions, all of it became part of her soul. And even as she sat on the throne of gods, the wound never closed. Mesmer the Impaler and Marika's crusade with the Golden Order established, Marika would announce a crusade against the Hornsent, a war meant to purge their influence from the world. The leader of this holy war was her own son, Mesmer the Impaler. According to Commander G's remembrance, Mesmer and G were considered elder brothers to Radahn, making Mesmer likely Marika's firstborn. His kindling incantation also references a younger sister who bore a vision of flame. Given everything we've learned about Melina and her ties to sacrifice and fire, this heavily implies that she is that younger sister. A firstborn of Marika, born alongside Mesmer. Mesmer led the charge. His black and fire knights, twisted soldiers of judgment, marched beneath the Golden Order, razing everything that threatened it. But what began as vengeance would soon become legacy, and it all started atop the Spiral Tower at the Gate of Divinity. Mesmer's fire knights were more than just elite warriors. They were the ones who knew him personally, which matters all the more when considering what Mesmer is, or more accurately, what he becomes. In battle, Mesmer is accompanied by winged serpents, but it's in his second phase that the truth is revealed. His transformation exposes the abyssal serpent coiled within him, a monstrous entity whose presence is so dangerous that Murga, another key figure, had sealed it away with a mark of grace. Mesmer's fire-bound knights likely knew the truth of his condition and remained loyal regardless. But it seems others in his ranks were not so forgiving. A few Black Knights, specifically Captain Hewin and Commander Andreas, are said to have abandoned his service after discovering the serpent inside him. Despite the desertions, Mesmer continued to command the loyalty of a strange and powerful mix of warriors, omen killers, academy scholars, and even carrion knights. Among them, none stand out more than Princess R'Lana, the younger sister of Queen Rennala. R'Lana should have been next in line to become a carrion queen, but instead, she left her noble house behind to join Mesmer's cause. Her use of twin blades wreathed in Mesmer's fire feels reminiscent of Pontiff Sulayvahn, but her earlier weapon, the carrion thrusting shield, suggests she once embraced her royal roots before fully adopting Mesmer's flame. Whatever relationship R'Lana and Mesmer shared, it's complicated, but significant. Their presence together also helps us date the Crusade. Since R'Lana and other Academy, aligned characters are present, It must have taken place after the war between Radagon and Rennala. Mesmer also refers to us as Tarnished, meaning this conflict happened after Queen Marika stripped the Tarnished of grace and banished them from the lands between. The precise timeline may be murky, but what's clear is Marika's loathing for the Shadowlands. As she had done before with the fire giants, the Nox and the Gloam-Eyed Queen, she saw the Hornsent as a threat and ordered their destruction. Mesmer became the chosen instrument of that vengeance, not just a general, but a symbol. His armor even says, "Direct thy maledictions, thine ire, and thy grief toward me alone." Mesmer made himself the vessel of hatred so that Marika could remain removed. His job was to bear the blame and to draw the fire. The Hornsent didn't go down quietly. They fought back, but they were no match. The DLC story trailer shows how thoroughly Mesmer's forces ravaged the land. Every sacred structure tied to the Hornsent was burned, their culture reduced to ruins. Their divine beast, once an object of reverence, was nearly hunted to extinction. The gate to Ener-Ilim, like the Erdtree before it, was sealed with impenetrable thorns, echoing Radagon's final defiance. Still, not everyone among Mesmer's army was comfortable with this level of destruction. Fire Knight Salza, for example, is seen protecting an ancient ruin instead of burning it, risking their life to preserve something they believed was sacred. This ruin, known as Rella, holds immense importance. Its origins appear tied to the Crucible, that primordial force of chaotic life that predated the Golden Order. The Antiquity Scholar's Cookbook, found here, is said to have been written by Hornsent academics studying ancient ruins, possibly in an attempt to understand or reclaim their own mythic past. Supporting this are items like the Talisman of all Crucibles, found near Rella, which claims it sprouted from a giant and is considered the mother of all Crucibles. In this very place, we meet Crucible Knight Devonia, whose armor tells us she left the lands between to discover the origin of the Crucible, strongly implying that this region, or this ruin, may be where it all began. Other fire-aligned characters like Night Hild tried to preserve what little remained. She advocated for the protection of specimens found in the storehouse, a massive 7-story archive filled with scrolls, tablets, and towering rafters. Suspended from those rafters are 2 notable figures. One, a massive horned corpse that may be a giant. The other, a shape eerily similar to Torrent, which might explain the DLC's early promotional image showing Miquella riding Torrent. The text within the storehouse cannot be read, but it appears to be a compiled knowledge-based crusaders, likely trying to understand the land they were conquering. Some specimens were possibly dissected Hornsent. Others may have been preserved, if only for study. The swiftness of the conquest had unintended consequences. Mesmer's crusade was so overwhelming, so apocalyptic, that it may have awakened or attracted outer gods to the Shadowlands, the Blood Fiends. Twisted cultists devoted to the Formless Mother, and Romina, a new vessel of scarlet rot, both seem to have emerged directly in the aftermath. An item called the Outer God Heirloom, found near one of the Fiend settlements, notes that this clan lost everything in the Great Fires. In a nearby cave, they are seen stabbing spears into the air, much like Moog did when communing with the Formless Mother. Romina's arc echoes this. Seen in the story trailer, she wields a spear shaped identically to the one the veiled woman carries during Mesmer's conquest. After her church was burned to the ground, Romina found something twisted, something divine among the wreckage. She merged that corrupted power with the scarlet rot, birthing the baleful rot. The scarlet buds in her area reveal a painful truth. They once symbolized the purity of the church, but after the fire they were tainted, blighted by the rot, a sacred emblem now turned into a curse. Despite this, I don't believe these outer gods were created because of Mesmer. It seems more likely that his war simply drew them out, exploiting the weakness, trauma, and devastation left in the wake of fire and blood. Each outer god appears to prey on a specific kind of suffering, a specific form of despair, and the Shadowlands, after Mesmer's purge, became a banquet. The Formless Mother, true to her name, does not appear by accident. She seeks out the cursed, those marked by blood, pain, or despair, and so she was drawn to Mohg. But her arrival wasn't triggered by Mohg or Mesmer alone. It was Mesmer's crusade that created the conditions for her arrival. Through fire, destruction, and divine betrayal, Mesmer opened a wound in the world. A perfect place for an outer god to whisper into the hearts of the broken. Though Mesmer's campaign was swift and brutal, its reward was silence. No victory parade, no glory, no acknowledgement. Instead, he was abandoned, like the nameless king in Dark Souls, who was struck from the annals of history for siding with the dragons. Mesmer too was erased. From Software usually seeds their DLCs with small hints in the base game, fragments of lore that blossom later. But in Mesmer's case, there's nothing. No weapons, no armor, no mentions. It's as if he never existed. This was by design. Queen Marika, fearing what Mesmer had become, locked the Shadowlands away and sealed off her son. His remembrance tells us why. She feared the serpents within him. Serpents and unbound fire, two things reviled by the Golden Order. Mesmer wielded both. Initially, it seemed like Mesmer adopted these taboos as weapons, as tools of blasphemy to bring ruin upon her enemies. But that wasn't the case. He was born this way. The fire is his own, and he despised it. The serpents were in him from youth. He didn't choose them. He was cursed with them. This is what makes his betrayal all the more tragic. After giving everything, his faith, his army, and his body, he was cast out. Marika disowned him, hid his existence, and let the world believe the Golden Order had no stains. Mesmer, left to rot in the Shadowlands, burned with hatred, but also longing. When we face him, he calls out, Mother. Wilt thou truly grant lordship to one so unloved? He can't understand how Marika, the woman he once fought for, would bless a tarnished, someone forsaken by grace, instead of her own child. It's the last bitter insult. And yet, even in his rage, Mesmer still loves her. Behind his boss room, there is a statue, Marika holding baby Mesmer. It's one of a kind, not the standard pose, not a cold monument. This is intimate, maternal, filled with sorrow. He built Shadow Keep to face the Shaman village, the last trace of his people. He left it untouched during the Crusade. He stationed tree sentinels to guard it. This wasn't just strategy. It was grief. In the western halls of the keep, there's something stranger still. A clinic. Dozens of jars lie shattered open, their contents spilled across bedding, as if someone was trying to reverse the jar rituals, or at least grant the victims peace. Mesmer, cursed though he was, seems to have tried to help Marika's people, to heal the wound that she never could. But it's all for nothing. Marika doesn't even know he's still alive. She rules as if he never existed. And Mesmer is alone. His rage and sorrow are mirrored in his legacy. His soldiers destroyed statues of Marika across the Shadowlands, cutting off her head, desecrating her image. But not his. His statue shows her as a loving mother, holding her infant son, before all the pain began. It's a memory frozen in stone, a time when Marika wasn't a god or a tyrant, just his mother. And all of this opens a deeper, darker question. Why did Marika shatter the Elden Ring at all? Was it because of Godwyn? Was it the final straw after a lifetime of grief? Or did something break long before? The DLC adds new weight to this question. It shows us that Marika had seen true death, brutal, inescapable, and twisted. She saw her village slaughtered. She adopted the culture that killed her people. Perhaps believing it could still be redeemed, she tried to do better. But death clung to her, no matter what she did. She tried to create a world without death. A world where her children would never suffer as she had. But it didn't work. Her children bore her pain. Morgott and Mohg were born with horns, reminders of the people who massacred her home. Mesmer and Melina had visions of flame. Melina was cursed with rot. Miquella could never grow. Each child, a mirror of her failure to escape death's grip. So she pulled the rune of death from the Elden Ring. But even that wasn't enough. Someone still found a way to use the rune and kill her son. After all her efforts, after all her pain, she failed. So she gave up. She shattered the Elden Ring and broke the world with it. And her mind shattered too, just like her body. It's hard to imagine the pain Marika must have endured to justify what she did. The trauma wasn't just historical. It was ever present. The horrors that destroyed her people refused to fade. They festered. They infected her children, clung to her land, and resurfaced even after she tried to seal death away. Even after removing the rune of death, death itself found another path back in. This is where Elden Ring's complexity as a narrative shines. Marika is the textbook gray character, a woman who committed atrocities, yet one who also suffered immensely. She didn't deserve the fate handed to her, but that doesn't absolve her of the cruel decisions she made. No, she didn't have to order a genocidal crusade. She didn't have to torture, subjugate, and annihilate the Hornsent. But could you trace the chain of events that led her there? Absolutely. And that's what makes her so compelling. Elden Ring is a story of cycles, of blood begetting blood, pain birthing more pain. The Golden Order was supposed to be a cure. Under the Greater Will, it was meant to usher in an age of light, abundance, and divine order. But that, too, was a lie. Mir, head of the Cathedral of Manasmitter, calls the entire foundation of the Erdtree a hypocritical farce. He says that Marika and the Fingers were broken from the beginning. And he's right. Beneath Ymir's cathedral, if you descend through 2 ancient ruins, you'll find the truth sealed in flesh Mitter, Mother of Fingers. Her remembrance calls her not just the first daughter of the Greater Will, not just the creator of the 2 Fingers and Finger Creepers, but the first star to fall upon the lands between. Her weapon, the Staff of the Great Beyond, reveals she received signs from the Greater Will from somewhere beyond the microcosm, but that those signs have long since stopped. What this implies is staggering. The Greater Will, the supposed god guiding the 2 Fingers, hasn't spoken in ages. The 2 Fingers, who shaped kingdoms and crowned lords, are effectively talking to no one. Or worse, they're still taking orders, but from a being who was never divine in the first place. The origin of the Golden Order, the very core of what governs the lands between, is based on a lie. A false god, a false prophecy, a false system. Marika isn't to blame for this. As Ymir tells us, the fault lies with the mother, Mitter. Elden Ring is a game about violence, yes, but it is also a story about motherhood, and what happens when motherhood becomes corrupted. Mitter yearned for her mother, the true Greater Will, but heard nothing in return. So she turned her gaze downward, to her own offspring, the 2 Fingers, the Finger Creepers. But what guidance could she give when she herself had been abandoned? Marika, like Mitter, was placed in the role of a divine mother. She bore demigods and tried to shape a better world, but she saw her children as tools. She had her firstborn son cleanse an entire land in flame, only to exile him afterward. She locked away her horned sons, Morgott and Mohg, in shame. Her legacy was one of division, grief, and shattered families. And when the Elden Ring finally broke, all that rage and pain turned inward. Siblings fought siblings, and the world bled. Miquella's pilgrimage and the price of compassion, but not all of her children stayed broken. One, Miquella, suffered so deeply under her reign that he vowed to succeed where she had failed. He would correct her wrongs. He would ascend not to power, but to compassion. Miquella is the true star of Shadow of the Erdtree. His goal is clear: to forge a new age, an age not of domination or fire, but of mercy. And for the first time in the series, we are not alone. As we venture deeper into the Shadowlands, we are joined by a band of warriors, people who weren't just hanging around the Roundtable hold, talking in circles, but who are now acting, fighting, and sacrificing for a shared vision. Each one joins the pilgrimage to find Miquella, not for glory or vengeance, but because they believe in something better. This is no longer a story of lone champions. It's a war of conviction, gods versus ghosts, cycles versus change, and at its heart is a golden-haired child, torn from his cocoon, trying to do what no god before him could end the suffering. Nearly every major boss in Shadow of the Erdtree lets you bring an NPC along for the fight, and it's not just a gimmick. This time, it feels like a real team. You're not alone in your struggle. You're part of a movement. Frey fights with you against the Divine Lion. Ale stands by your side for the duel with Relana. The Hornsent naturally joins against Mesmer. Dryleaf Dane shows up for Romina, and both Ansbach and Tyalier are there for the climactic battles later on, including the final boss. For once, your allies aren't just background lore, they're participants. Each one pulls their weight. Each one matters. And what a diverse group they are. L.A. is a Needle Knight in service of Miquella, alongside Dryleaf Dane. Frey is a Redmane warrior who fought beside General Radon. Ansbach is a former pureblood knight who once served under Lord Mogg. The Hornsent is exactly what his name implies, a member of the Hornsent Tower Faithful. Thialier doesn't come with a formal affiliation, but he's there for a reason to find and follow Miquella. To locate Miquella, we follow the trail of his crosses, strange wooden cruciform markers he's left behind on his path. They're eerie. At first, you might write off their messages as poetic, but they quickly spiral into something more unsettling. The first one simply says he left his flesh behind, strange but not unheard of in a land of demigods. But the next ones, he leaves behind his doubts, then his love. And if you keep following the trail, you'll eventually find what that love was. Beneath one of the crosses lies a sleeping girl in violet hues. Saint Trina. Trina was always an enigma in the base game, associated with sleep and dreams, with items implying a fluid identity. Some saw Trina as a girl, others as a boy. For a long time, fans speculated a connection between Trina and Miquella, citing the shared themes of dreams, compassion, and duality. The DLC confirms it. Saint Trina is Miquella. At least she was. Trina is a fragment of Miquella that he tore from himself in his pursuit of godhood. Now, she lies in eternal slumber, abandoned but still deeply loyal. One of your companions, Thialier, is devoted to her, and through him, you can speak with Trina directly. She asks you to stop Miquella. She loves him. She believes that godhood will curse him, not save him. That the pursuit he's chosen will erase what made him beautiful. She pleads for him to be saved from himself. This act of separation, Miquella tearing out his love, echoes something profound about the story's structure. Just as he split off Trina, could Marika have done the same? This leads to Relana. Her full title is Relana of the Golden Order. She appears as a devout champion of the Erdtree, an unflinching loyalist. She acts in the interests of the Golden Order without question. Her role in the final stretch of the story supports this idea. In the final cutscene before the last battle, both Marika and Relana are present, but only Relana fights. Marika never lifts a hand. So what if, just like Miquella and Trina, Relana is a part of Marika? If Trina was Miquella's love, perhaps Relana is Marika's loyalty, the embodiment of her allegiance to the Golden Order, split off so she could finally rebel against it. By casting away her devotion, she created a self-imposed saboteur to sabotage the very system she built. And that's exactly what drew Miquella to the Land of Shadow. Each cross we find reveals another piece of Miquella being left behind. Trina was the hardest to let go. He had to remove his ability to hesitate before he could bring himself to abandon her. He removed his vacillations, meaning he erased his own internal doubt. That alone should be an enormous red flag. Miquella isn't becoming a god as himself. He's stripping away everything human along the way. Even his great rune is shattered. We find its broken fragments at the base of the Shadow Tree, following a battle with the Shadow Tree avatar. Its description confirms the symbolism. Miquella is abandoning everything, his love, his doubt, his identity, to bury the original sin and be reborn as a god. That original sin is likely the same sin that led to Marika's own ascension. But this act didn't just affect him. When Miquella shattered his rune, a ripple went through the Land of Shadow. As you approach the Shadow Keep Castle, a sound rings out. A message appears: a great rune was broken. A spell has been lifted. What spell? The one placed on everyone you meet in the DLC. Every single one of your allies was compelled to come here. They weren't just drawn by faith or fate. They were pulled by the residual power of Miquella's broken rune. They came here because he made them. His journey is no longer just his own. It's changing the fabric of the world and pulling people into its wake, even if they don't realize it. And now we must ask, is this compassion? Or is it control? Because either way, we're past the point of no return. It's jarring, honestly, seeing a functioning team in a Souls game. Normally, these worlds are lonely, fragmented. But here, in shadow of the Erdtree, you're not just some drifter weaving through ruins. You're one of many. And yet, that unity, it's not as pure as it seems. Miquella's ability to charm people isn't a new idea. The base game already hinted at it with the Bewitching Branch, a consumable item that lets you charm enemies into fighting for you. The description literally names Miquella and shows his sigil, the emblem of the Erdtree. But in the DLC, we get to see just how far this power goes. It's not just manipulation of the mind. Miquella's charm reaches into the soul, bending emotion, loyalty, even memory. Characters like Frey the Hornsent and Leda seem relatively stable, disturbed but not broken. But someone like Ansbach, he panics when memories of Miquella resurface. Once a pure-blood knight, Ansbach challenged Miquella in single combat and had his heart stolen, likely charmed. We even see a version of this in the final boss fight, an attack where Miquella literally steals your heart, symbolizing complete surrender to his will. This charm, this deep-rooted persuasion, reshapes the story. It's why people like Ansbach, who had no intention of serving Miquella, suddenly shift. It's why characters suppress things they didn't even know they carried. Even Leda, usually resolute, becomes increasingly suspicious of those around her once she breaks free of the spell. Once her mind clears, she fears betrayal, so much so that she asks you to assassinate your allies, starting with the Hornsent and later Ansbach. This mistrust defines her. Her weapon description says her blade still reeks of comrade's blood, and the final talisman tied to her quest states the Needle Knights once served Miquella. But now they're no more. Safe to assume she slaughtered them. And now, she doesn't trust you either. She's blunt about it too. She admits that without Miquella's charm, she's naturally mistrustful. Cold honesty in a cold world? It all comes to a head before you even reach Miquella. Leda blocks your path and spells it out. She knows why you're here. It's not for Miquella, it's for the Erdtree. She says the shattering of Miquella's great rune didn't affect you because you were never charmed to begin with. And she's right. While the others were drawn here by Miquella's subconscious pull, you arrived with a goal to fulfill the same mission you began in Limgrave. Cross the fog, follow grace, and become Elden Lord. The guidance of grace led you to demigods then. It's leading you to Miquella now. That's enough for Leda to turn on you completely. She blocks your path and demands a final confrontation. Your team versus hers. It's brutal, raw, and entirely dependent on your prior decisions. Leda's side includes herself, Dryleaf Dane, Frey, Moore, and the Hornsent. You'll have Tyolier and Ansbach, but who actually appears depends on the choices you've made. If you accepted Leda's request to kill the Hornsent at Shadow Keep, he won't show. If you tell Moore to stay behind after the rune breaks, he'll end his life in sorrow. If Frey's quest wasn't completed, she won't appear either. It's possible to reduce her team to just Leda and Dane, but every choice has weight. The motivations of your allies fracture here. Leda and Dane are loyal to Miquella no matter what. That's unwavering. The Hornsent wants vengeance, and fighting alongside you against Mesmer is supposed to fulfill that. But if it doesn't, he'll come after you later, broken and wrathful. Moore has always liked Miquella. No betrayal there. Tyolier serves Saint Trina, so his cause is tied to stopping Miquella. Frey and Ansbach, however, end up on opposite sides. Their reasons are more deeply connected to what comes immediately after. This battle is more than swords and spells. It's a collision of ideals. Everyone came to this land for Miquella, but now the group is splintered. The goal that united them no longer exists. Or worse, never did. People fight for vengeance, others for atonement, some out of love, others out of duty. The reasons are varied, personal, and that's what makes it hurt. Because you're fighting your friends, not just companions. People who fought beside you, bled with you, helped you conquer the impossible, and now you're putting them down one by one. This battle against the very NPCs who made the journey feel real, it's my favorite. Not just in the DLC, in the entire game. But more than that, it's what I care about most in these games. The NPCs, their stories, their motives, their quiet tragedies. I don't care how tough a boss is if I don't know what they're fighting for. This fight gives you that. Every blade swung, every spell cast, it's steeped in purpose. And once it's done, you're alone again. You say your goodbyes. You walk forward. And just as you think you're ready to face Miquella, you're stopped. Radon returns. He's the final boss, and he's not alone. In the second phase, Miquella joins him. The stars align. The fate of compassion, loyalty, betrayal, and rebirth is about to be written, one last time. Even though the big twist drops hard during that initial cutscene, the reveal that Miquella intends to use Mohg's corpse as a vessel for Radon's soul, it actually lays the groundwork in subtle but clear ways, especially if you're paying attention to your companions before the final battle. Both Freya and Ansbach can be found earlier at the storehouse, combing through ancient texts for exactly this sort of information. They speak with heavy tones of realization and regret as the truth starts to emerge. Ansbach, in particular, has one of the most quietly devastating moments of clarity when he realizes what Miquella intends.
Yes, I should have known. Even the truth was itself mere folly. As if using Lord Mohg to gain entrance to the land of shadow were not enough, he plans to use his corpse as the vessel of his king consort. He has forsaken Lord Mohg's soul. He desires only his empty shell. It beggars belief, but I'm afraid tender Miquella fails to grasp the humiliation implied by this act. One thing is certain. My dear lord deserved better, but I can hardly fathom it. Such folly unto the end.
Miquella, already using Mohg's twisted love to gain entrance into the land of shadow, now plans to defile his body further, turning Mohg into the vessel for his chosen consort. That consort, General Radon. Freya sees it from another angle. She accepts what's coming. Radon, after all, died an honorable death as part of the Festival of War. To her, bringing him back is a righteous act. But for Ansbach, this desecration of a lord's body is unforgivable. His dialogue becomes even more poignant when you realize he used to serve under Mohg as a pureblood knight. That loyalty still lingers, even if it's buried under layers of pain and betrayal. What we learn is that Miquella intended to invoke the ancient and secret rite, a ritual spelled out in the secret rite scroll. It states plainly, a lord must usher in a god's return, and the lord's soul must be placed within a vessel. Mohg had to die, Radon had to die, and both had to die before the DLC's story could begin. Their deaths were prerequisites. With Mohg's body and Radon's soul, Miquella could fulfill the prophecy. And that's exactly what happens. When you face Radon as the final boss, he enters the battlefield alone. But in the second phase, Miquella arrives, not as a half-formed god, not as a cursed demigod twisted by outer forces, but whole, radiant, divine. He has returned from the gate of divinity as a complete god ready to claim his new age. The ritual is complete. That's also why Freya and Ansbach are on opposite sides during the NPC battle. Freya believes in the return of Radon. Ansbach can't allow Miquella to violate Mohg's body in such a way. And so they clash, just as loyalties fracture across the rest of your allies. Now, here's the part that really caught me off guard. The DLC doesn't paint the Mohgwyn dynasty in the same villainous colors as the base game. Back then, our first impression of Mohg was him cradling a childlike Miquella in a blood-soaked cocoon, while NPCs mocked us and cursed his name. But here, the tone shifts. Suddenly, Mohg's actions seem less like autonomous evil and more like the tragic consequence of being manipulated by Miquella. Ansbach, The most level-headed, reflective NPC in the DLC makes this point clear. Right before the final fight, you can admit to him that you killed Mohg, and he doesn't even get angry. He acknowledges that Mohg died in fair combat and accepts that, as a lord, Mohg had to fight his own battles. His defeat was honorable, but that doesn't absolve Miquella of manipulation. It's heavily implied, if not outright shown, that Miquella charmed Mohg just as he did so many others. Unlike Leda or the Hornsent, who already admired Miquella, Mohg had his own ambitions. He wanted to make Miquella the god of his dynasty. Was that his idea? Or was that desire planted in him, subtly or not, by Miquella's charm? It's not clearly answered. But the idea that the dynasty predated Mohg's meeting with Miquella is possible. Ansbach certainly suggests it. He implies that he served Mohg before ever encountering Miquella, only to be defeated and later charmed himself. That would mean Mohg founded the dynasty on his own terms, and only later got pulled into Miquella's orbit, eventually twisted into a vessel, a pawn in the greater scheme. It's a cruel irony. Miquella, god of compassion, dismantles his own brother's body to fulfill a cosmic promise. But for Miquella, it was always about that promise, a vow made with Radahn long ago. The details are scarce, and the game leaves the nature of the vow deliberately ambiguous. But the outcome is clear. Miquella intended Radahn to be his consort. Whether Radahn agreed or not is unclear. His armor set may hold the key, referencing the moment when Melina whispered to him during their final clash, "Miquella awaits the promised consort." That line alone implies that this wasn't some spontaneous alliance. It was a vow rooted in their past, maybe even their childhood. But was Radahn ever truly on board? Maybe not. Maybe the Festival of War, his fatal clash with Melina, was his way of rejecting that vow. Maybe that was him saying no. Either way, he died. And now, Miquella brings him back, not as a partner in arms, but as a consort for godhood. So, in the end, what does this say about Miquella? He preaches compassion. He draws others in with a quiet, gentle light. But that light conceals ruthless intent. The god of mercy manipulates the dead, rips himself in half, charms his allies, and uses the corpses of brothers and legends to bring about his promised age. He's no villain, but he's no savior either. He's a god, and gods in Elden Ring are never clean. This final stretch of the story pulls no punches, and neither does the truth about Miquella. As it turns out, Melina wasn't just a bystander or a blind protector. She was in on it. Whether or not you believe Radahn agreed to Miquella's vow, Melina certainly did, and she took deliberate steps to ensure it was fulfilled. Her battle with Radahn wasn't just a duel between two demigods. It was part of a larger plan, and that makes it all the more chilling. Even so, I find myself uneasy with Miquella's path. His intentions, embracing his mother's sins to undo them, seem noble on the surface. But somewhere along the way, that desire warped into something else. He carries this heavy conviction, as if he alone must atone, as if the burden of Marika's failings rests solely on his shoulders. And that belief is slowly crushing him, because the truth is, the blame isn't his to carry. It belongs to the mother. Miquella may have seen himself as the redeemer, but in the process, he's begun to reflect the very flaws he sought to correct. He claims to be the champion of a new age of compassion. Yet he casts aside Saint Trina, his other half, and desecrates the corpse of his own brother. One of the ghosts near Trina captures this contradiction perfectly. Kenly Miquella, I've seen you throwing away something you should not have under any circumstances. How can he save others when he can't even protect the part of himself that embodies love? It's a cruel symmetry. Just like Marika, Miquella now seeks to rule from a place of divine isolation, backed by warriors driven more by loyalty and force than genuine unity. Godfrey waged war with beastly rage and scorched entire peoples in the name of Marika. Radahn idolized that brute strength. And now Miquella, who should have known better, chooses a similar consort, hoping for a different outcome from the same cycle of violence. As the saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I believe Miquella wanted peace. I believe he wanted safety. The Erdtree was proof of that. A sanctuary where differences didn't need to mean division. But in trying to become a god worthy of leading such a world, he shed every part of himself that made him human. Love, doubt, hesitation, gone. And without those, his so-called age of compassion is just another hollow dream. So we arrive at the end. All bosses defeated. All truths uncovered. One final door remains the Erdtree. Inside, Marika hangs crucified upon a rune arc, a spear piercing her side like a divine mirror of Christian martyrdom. It evokes the holy spear that pierced Christ, but here it's less a sign of death and more a shackle. Marika isn't dead. She's trapped, imprisoned. Her rebellion against the Golden Order never got the chance to ignite, and who placed her here? At first glance, it seems like Riken, the ever-loyal hound of the Golden Order. But there's reason to believe it wasn't him. He's locked here too, after all. The real captor may be something far more terrifying, the Elden Beast. This creature, sent by the Greater Will alongside the Two Fingers, is the living embodiment of the Elden Ring. It's not just the final boss. It is the ring, the divine law itself. Marika's rebellion was against this very entity. She had Hugh forge a weapon to slay a god for a reason. And the Elden Beast, with its strange star, clustered body, and alien design, is that reason. It's not of this world. It is from the stars, incomprehensible and celestial, meant to reflect the mysterious, unknowable laws that the Greater Will forced upon the lands between. Even the way it feels under your sword reinforces that alien nature. When you strike it, it's like hitting glass, fragile, cosmic, and wrong. There's even a fracture in its stomach, echoing the fractured Elden Ring itself. Everything about it tells you this thing does not belong here. Defeating it doesn't just mark the end of your journey. It marks the end of a god. And with the Elden Beast gone, the throne is yours. The question now becomes, what kind of ending will you choose? Most of the endings revolve around Marika. Even shattered, even immobilized, she remains the vessel of the Elden Ring. The runes pouring from Riken's body hint at this divine puppetry. The body remains, the power flows. And now, it's our turn. We too become vessels. We too are chosen, but chosen for what? To carry a solemn duty, one that gnaws at the soul like a curse. As her rune seal says, solemn duty weighs upon the one beholden, not unlike a gnawing curse from which there is no deliverance. It's a brutal, sobering line. Maybe that's what Saint Trina meant all along. Godhood isn't just a burden, it's a kind of death. You lose yourself in pursuit of something eternal, something impossible. But we've come this far. Whatever ending you choose, whether you burn the tree, restore the order, or turn away from it all, one thing is true, the decision is yours. And after everything we've seen, everything we've fought, that might be the cruelest mercy of all. The final choice, fracture, flame, or stars, the true brilliance of Elden Ring as an RPG lies in its power to make you not just play a role, but weigh it. After everything we've uncovered, the decisions ahead are not simple. They're shaped by what you believe the lands between should become. And with that, we arrive at the endings. If you've wandered the world without diving into the deeper fates of its NPCs, you'll likely receive the default resolution, the Age of Fracture. You ascend as Elden Lord, but the world remains broken. The demigods are dead. The order remains in pieces. You've simply inherited a shattered crown, with little promise that things will change. It mirrors the Age of Fire from Dark Souls, an ending where the world keeps spinning, not because it's thriving, but because you didn't stop it. It's the path of least resistance, a silent hope that someone else will fix what's been broken. The other endings, however, carry weight. Each proposes a new vision for the lands between, each shaped by the mending runes. The Elden Ring was shattered, and these runes serve as the stitching thread to bind it together again. Which thread you choose speaks volumes. One comes from Fia, the deathbed companion. She calls herself a woman who receives warmth and vigor from fallen champions. These remnants, souls and essences, she collects with the intention of reviving a noble being. She embraces the unliving, those rejected by the Golden Order, especially after the rune of death was removed from the ring. She sees value in what others fear. Godwyn, her chosen, became the first of the undead, the Prince of Death. His soul was annihilated in the Night of the Black Knives, thanks to Ranni's scheme. His body lingered, soulless, and from it spread deathroot, giving rise to those skeletal beings who refused to die properly. The Golden Order saw this as an abomination. Fia saw it as something sacred. Her goal, to birth a new order with Godwyn, an age where death is restored to its rightful place, and the persecuted undead are granted dignity. Her rune declares that the Golden Order, which had sealed away destined death, would now be replaced by one where death has a place once more. This could mean a world where death is natural again, or a world where those who live in death, the unliving, have a place in society. Either way, it is a world of shadow and silence, where life ends honestly, not endlessly. Then there is Goldmask, a philosopher of the Golden Order, but not a zealot. While Dee and the other hunters of those who live in death see threats to be purged, Goldmask sees flaws to be addressed. He's not interested in blind loyalty. He seeks truth. He believes the Golden Order can be righteous, but only if its hypocrisy is acknowledged and corrected. To him, the gods themselves, particularly Marika, are the weak link. They are too fickle, too emotional, too flawed to uphold divine law. His rune doesn't reform the entire system. It removes the gods as central figures in the equation. Their inconsistency, their favoritism. It is the rot he cuts away. But this leaves lingering questions. What of the omen? What of the oppressed? Goldmask never comments on these. He wants to fix the architecture, not the foundation. His vision might be stable, even elegant, but not necessarily just. And then there is the Dung Eater. His very name repels, his actions disgust. But his rune, the rune of the Fell Curse, is the most radical of all. As a child, he received a vision, a cursed ring, a truth that would damn him, and a role as its vessel. Believing this to be divine purpose, he began to inflict his vision onto others, murdering and defiling innocents, so their souls could never return to the Erdtree. His seated curses ensured the fallen were trapped, severed from grace. These weren't just killings, they were spiritual executions. And from this, he dreamed of a world covered in filth, where the divine would have no dominion. His rune carries the promise of an age free from control, free from the laws of the gods, where no one is bound by grace or damnation. It's anarchy, it's rot. But for some, maybe it's also freedom. Each of these runes represents a fragment of truth, death restored, order corrected, chaos embraced. But they all share a common thread. They attempt to change the lands between. Whether through mercy, reason, or madness, each rejects the default ending's quiet stagnation. And even among these, there are more endings, secret paths tied to deeper quests, darker pacts, and greater revelations. Ranni's ending, for instance, or the Age of Stars, promises a cold, distant peace beneath a moonlit sky. Others lead to flame, to frenzy, to broken reality. But in all of them, the question remains, what world do you want to leave behind? Elden Ring doesn't give you morality bars or karma meters. It gives you ruins, corpses, liars, lovers, heretics, and gods. And then it asks you what now. You've walked through fire, fought legends, and spoken with ghosts. Now, the choice is yours. Not to be right, not to be kind, but to rule. The reason Seabid curses work the way they do actually goes back to Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice. In that game, there's a class of enemies known as the Headless, whose grab attack involves, quite literally, violating the player. This unsettling animation draws from Japanese folklore, where a creature known as a kappa was said to pull the shurikadama, a spiritual organ believed to reside in the anus, from its victims. The shurikadama was thought to be the seat of the soul, so what the kappa was stealing wasn't just flesh, it was essence. That same folklore frames the Dung Eater's entire ideology, except instead of stealing souls, he curses them, deeply, permanently. After gathering enough Seabid curses, these marks left by his victims, the Dung Eater requests that we defile him in turn. Only by being cursed the same way can he become the bearer of the curse. Through this act, he births a mending rune, the Rune of the Fell Curse. Its description is chilling. It speaks of a curse that will last eternally, one passed down from child to grandchild to every generation beyond. A curse so absolute that it rewrites what curse even means. If the entire world is cursed, then no one is. If all are defiled, then defilement becomes meaningless. And so, for every curse, there is a cursed blessing. This new order is horrifying, yet weirdly logical. In time, entire generations will be born with the Omen curse. Those children will then bear more cursed children, until the lands between is populated solely by Omen. No more persecution. No more hierarchy. Just a world of horned outcasts. Except they're no longer outcasts. They are the world. But the cost is staggering. The Dung Eater himself admits that among these generations, people like him will rise, monsters, torturers, killers. His words confirm that the curse doesn't end with him. It keeps seeding even under his new order. So, while this path ends the Golden Order's tyranny over the Omen, it replaces it with a cruel cycle of eternal spiritual mutilation. The Age of the Fell Curse is less a blessing of despair, and more despair dressed as blessing. The last two endings reject the Golden Order entirely. They don't rely on mending runes. They intend to burn the whole system to the ground and build something new. First comes the Frenzied Flame, a power older, alien, and entirely incompatible with the world's current shape. Scattered across the lands between are its scars, the Madness Village, the chaos, twisted wildlife of the Abyssal Woods, the shattered minds of Lendel's soldiers. The Frenzied Flame is an outer god, one of chaos and dissolution, offering a form of salvation through obliteration. Its doctrine is simple: destroy everything to end everything. Peace through complete erasure. The path begins subtly, through characters like Hyetta and Shabriri. Hyetta, blind and seemingly pure, eventually becomes a vessel for the flame. Shabriri, on the other hand, is the embodiment of it, his hollowed, eyes filled with flame, his words sharp with madness. Together, they lead you toward the flame's heart. That heart resides beneath the capital, buried deep in the sewers, guarded by an illusory Mog and massive trials. There, behind two ancient doors, rests the Three Fingers, a grotesque counterpart to the Two Fingers of the Greater Will. It's the only one of its kind, and no one agrees whether it was a fallen servant of order or a flame-ravaged abomination. What matters is what it offers. Approach without armor, strip bare of all grace and protection, and you'll be branded, scarred by the Frenzied Flame and reborn as its lord. The world will know no grace, no rebirth, no forgiveness. You will not patch the Elden Ring. You will incinerate it. The Erdtree, the gods, the fragments of divinity, all gone, and with them, the lies, the systems, the cages of belief. The Lord of Frenzied Flame brings not peace, but a final scream. But even this isn't without sympathy. The nomadic merchants were falsely accused of consorting with this flame. Driven underground, they died in confinement, chanting curses into the air, begging for divine punishment to fall on the world that damned them. And the Frenzied Flame answered, "If you choose this path, you don't mend the broken order. You make sure it can never return." The Dung Eater spreads his curse to liberate the hated. The Frenzied Flame spreads madness to burn the lie. One births monsters, the other erases history. Either way, it's no longer about what's right. It's about who should decide what comes next. If Melina wasn't sacrificed before the final battle, she will reappear at the end, just as she promised. Her demeanor changes drastically, her voice colder, her expression hardened, and visually, she's transformed. Her hair and one of her eyes now reflect the sealed power she long kept hidden. This release of power has led some to speculate that Melina may be connected to the Gloam-Eyed Queen, the original leader of the Godskins. While the Godskins are known for their white garb and grotesque skin motifs, there's a striking detail, a violet gem embedded in their chests, which some interpret as symbolically linked to Melina's glowing eye. The theory is that, like her brother Mesmer, she may carry a royal seal, only smaller, tucked behind the marking over her eye. Still, this theory remains speculative. The DLC offers little to support or deny it. Melina receives almost no attention in the expansion beyond a single item description, her fate, her identity. And the truth of her eye remain locked behind silence. We don't even get a proper conclusion. Her appearance ends the cutscene abruptly. What we do know is that she will attempt to stop the player if they've inherited the Frenzied Flame, willing to fulfill her oath even if it means dying in the process. But as Hayata puts it, her voice quiet and final, none of that may matter. Al has returned to the One, she says, a time before the greater will, before gods, before death, before self, before even sin, a time when everything was chaos, not order. May chaos take the world. In contrast to that descent into madness, the final ending lies in the Age of Stars, led by Ranni the Witch. Ranni's journey is one of cold defiance. She's the one who orchestrated the Night of the Black Knives, working with the assassins to kill a demigod and shatter the Order. But it wasn't murder for power, it was rebellion. She sacrificed her own flesh to live on in the body of a doll, removing herself from fate, from control, from the touch of the greater will. Her entire arc is a cosmic rejection of divine predestination. To fulfill her plan, you must become her partner, her consort, not just in love, but in revolution. You'll be helped along the way by her allies Blade, her loyal shadow, War Counselor Seluvis with his hidden agendas, and the blacksmith IG who guards her from afar. Together, you'll bring about the age she envisions. But first, Ranni must slay her 2 fingers. You retrieve the Finger Slayer blade from Nokron, the Eternal City, after defeating Radan. His death lets the stars fall again, an act that opens the pathway to Nokron, a lost city buried under stasis. With the blade in hand, Ranni kills her 2 fingers and frees herself from their influence. But this is not without consequences. Shadows like Blade were created by the 2 fingers to serve the Empyreans. His mind becomes torn, part of him still loyal to Ranni, the other part programmed to kill her if she turns traitor. It's a tragic twist. IG, fearing Blade's breakdown, imprisons him in an Evergall, but it doesn't hold. After the quest ends, Blade returns to Ranni's rise, raving, broken, hostile. He has succumbed to his fate, and yet, among the bodies of Black Knife assassins, we see what really happened. He fought to the bitter end, protecting her. The Black Knife assassins strike again, killing IG as well. Despite knowing he would likely die, the old smith never left Ranni's side. They all gave everything for her. Seluvis, thankfully, dies earlier. No one misses him. Ranni's quest is littered with loss. When she says she must shed all that binds her to this world, she means it. Her loyal knights, her friends, her shadows, they all fall. And yet, her conviction never wavers. At the end of it all, when you slay the Elden Beast, you may choose to summon her. She appears beneath a vast moon, and you take her hand. Together, you bring about the Age of Stars. It's a cold ending, distant, mysterious, and hard to interpret. Ranni promises an order not of gold, but of moonlight, not of dominance, but of detachment. The translated dialogue often reads as vague or cryptic, but if you complete her full quest, she clarifies her purpose through the miniature Ranni doll. Her words are calm, resolute. She will guide the lands between into an era governed not by gods and order, but by the quiet expanse of night and the distant pull of the stars. No flame, no root, no curse. Just the long dark and the blue-eyed witch who walks beside you.
Mine will be an order not of gold, but the stars and moon of the chill night. I would keep them far from the earth beneath our feet. As it is now, life and souls and order are bound tightly together. But I would have them at a great remove, and have the certainties of sight, emotion, faith, and touch all become impossibilities, which is why I would abandon this soil with mine order. Wouldst thou come to me even now, my one and only Lord?
With those words, Ranni makes her vision clear. She does not seek to rule like Marika. She does not want worship, obedience, or control. She desires an order that exists without a god at its center. A realm free from the cycle of reverence and betrayal. Her order will not be ruled from a throne. It will drift, detached, beyond even the reach of devotion. Ranni understands what Goldmask also tries to address, that the failings of the Golden Order are rooted in the caprice of gods. Where Goldmask seeks to repair the system from within, Ranni's solution is more radical. She removes herself entirely. She becomes unreachable. That distance, she hopes, will protect the new order from the same rot that plagued the last one. But this detachment comes at a cost. Ranni's actions, most notably the Night of the Black Knives, set in motion the events that shattered the Elden Ring. Her rebellion may have prevented future divine tyranny, but it also plunged the world into an age of ruin and suffering. Her own half-brother, Rykard, was forever changed as a consequence, and her companions, Blade and Ige, died in her name. Though she may have loved them, their deaths were the toll for her independence. Whatever sympathy we feel for Ranni must also confront the harsh truth. She is willing to sacrifice everything, and everyone, for her vision. This is the paradox at the heart of Elden Ring. Every ending, whether cruel or kind, comes with consequences, and the beauty of the RPG format is that you get to decide what vision suits your Tarnished best. If you do nothing, if you engage in none of the major NPC side quests, you receive the Age of Fracture, the default ending. In it, you become Elden Lord, but the world remains fundamentally broken. It's not victory, it's stagnation. Like the Age of Fire in Dark Souls, this ending simply preserves the status quo, waiting for the next upheaval. Other endings seek to rebuild or redefine the world entirely. Goldmask's Mending Rune attempts to fix the Golden Order from within. He sees the brilliance in its structure, even as he condemns its inconsistency and divine hypocrisy. His ending retains the foundation of the Order, but purges the fickleness of its creators, removing Marika as the unstable fulcrum. Ranni's ending is the ideological opposite. Her order is not built on gold, but stars. It's a realm of cold detachment, guided by moonlight, and governed by no single power. A realm not without rules, but without rulers. Where Goldmask refines the system, Ranni replaces it with something alien, yet free. Then there's the Frenzied Flame, a vision of pure obliteration. The Tarnished who chooses this path becomes the Lord of Chaos, undoing the very structure of life, soul, and meaning. From a moral lens, it's easily read as evil, but if you see the lands between as inherently corrupt and unfixable, then maybe annihilation is mercy. Maybe the burning is cleansing. Maybe it's honest. Elden Ring isn't a story of heroes or villains. It's a world of ruin and consequences, built from blood, ash, and faint golden light. It doesn't care about who's right or wrong. It only asks what you're willing to endure. Some Tarnished chase the flame, not to save the world, but to burn it down and start anew. Others linger in dark crypts, speaking to ancient bones that hold forgotten secrets. Some follow the stars, hoping for a cold, free sky unbound by gods. And others just want the title of Elden Lord, believing a crown can give meaning to the chaos. No path is truly wrong. Each one weaves through loss, betrayal, and fragile belief. Even the darkest endings, those steeped in decay or madness, come from grief too heavy to carry or hope twisted into something strange. The world is broken, and Elden Ring leaves it to you to decide how to piece it together. For many, it's the start of their own story. I've seen players step into it, unsure at first, then standing stronger. They learn to read the silence, the distant howls, the faded runes. They learn that winning often means losing something else, that every step forward leaves a mark. And as you walk this shattered land, each choice carves a path not just through the lands between, but through you. It leaves a scar, a spark, a truth, etched in blood and starlight, enduring beyond the fading throne, a flame to carry through the endless dawns. And with that, we've reached the end of the Tarnished's long road, the end of the Elden Ring's grand story. From the shattering to the ascent, from the depths of despair to the shadow beyond the Erdtree, we've followed the gods, the ghosts, the broken kings, and forgotten children. We've walked through rot and flame, starlight and sorrow, and we've emerged, changed. This might be the end of the main tale, the second and final chapter in this long Elden Ring saga, but there is so much more still buried in the lands between. So many characters whose stories weren't told here, who live in the margins or in the silence. I plan to return for them too. But before that, I want to share other worlds that mean just as much to me. I've been playing the Elder Scrolls since I first wandered out of Helgen over 15 years ago. That series holds a very special place in my heart, and I can't wait to explore its stories with you, both the ones you know and the ones hidden deep in dusty old texts and obscure quests. Expect Elder Scrolls videos soon. I'll also be talking about other games and stories that have left a mark on me. Titles like Red Dead Redemption, Vinland Saga, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, the ones that made me sit back, go quiet, and feel something deep. So to everyone who made it this far, thank you. Truly, whether you've been here since part 1 or just joined recently, I'm grateful for your time, your curiosity, and your love for storytelling. Take care of yourselves. Stay curious, I'll be back soon. Until next time, may Marika guide you on your quest.